Well, it's already a couple days into the new year, and by now I'm not too sure if many New Year's resolutions and aims and goals and desires and dreams have faded yet. It's maybe a bit too early for that, but for a lot of us, I believe that there's still this thing in us at this time of the year of wanting to move forward into the more of what God's got for us, the more of reaching our potential and walking in our destiny and in the fullness of what God's got for us. And that's what we're currently looking at, is how do we live in the more? How do we step into more of what God's got for us, more of our potential, etc., etc. And so I want to look at, over the next couple of episodes, just moving forward. Because it's important that we're moving forward. If you want to move forward, it's quite simple. You have to move forward. You can't go where you need to go as long as you're camped where you're camped, where you are right now. It doesn't matter how good last year was. We've got to move on past that. It doesn't matter how bad last year was. We've got to move on. It doesn't matter. Let me put it like this: you cannot allow last year, whether it was good or bad, to define the coming year. And this is really important. It's irrelevant whether where you are right now is good or bad, okay? Because if you want to move forward, you need to basically let go and make decisions to move forward towards where you need to go to, okay? Jeremiah 29:11, the Net Bible, NET, says, "For I know what I have planned for you, says the Lord. I have plans to prosper you, not to harm you. I have plans to give you a future filled with hope." Okay, so believing that God has plans and a future filled with hope for us is one thing. But actually living in those plans and that future filled with hope is a completely another thing. It's completely something else. If you want your future filled with hope to be your present future filled with hope, then you need to let go of where you are and you need to move forward. Okay, for some of you that might mean letting go of some hurt, letting go of some unforgiveness and some bitterness. It might mean letting go of past victories to look forward to new victories. It might mean letting go of tragedy and things like that. We cannot allow good or bad previous to define our today. We've got to allow ourselves to move on into what God's got for us. Okay? There's always more of God's goodness for us to experience. No one is experiencing everything that God's got for them. And so there's always more for us to push on into. It doesn't matter how good your now is, we should be moving forward. But how do you move forward? I think that's a valid question. Okay, Philippians 3 verse 3 says, or 3 verse 13 says, "Brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself to have attained this. Instead, I am single-minded, forgetting the things that are behind and reaching out for the things that are ahead." This is a powerful verse for us, especially at the start of a new year. Today and tomorrow, we're going to start looking at different keys from this verse, which show us how we can move forward into our future filled with hope. Okay, and remember that this is God's desire for you, is that you would experience a future filled with hope. Okay, so the first key I want to pull out from this verse is that it says, "I do not consider myself to have attained this." Okay, you'll never know everything that there is to know about everything. And you'll never know if you've experienced everything that there is to experience. And so you cannot allow pride to hold you captive by selling you the lie that you've arrived. Okay, you've got to have this mindset of, yes, yesterday, last year was great, but this year is going to be greater. Okay, we've got to constantly be moving forward. We need to maintain a humble and teachable attitude, because we're never too old to learn, we're never too young to learn. Okay, I was really humbled a few years back when a pastor that I really respect and I love said to me, he said these words to me: God has told me that there is a revelation that you are to have about such and such, which I need. Can you share with me, please? This guy came to me and he was saying, I believe God's told me I need to learn about this topic from you. And that humbled me, because I really respect this guy. And he came to me. I'm much younger than him, been in ministry fewer years than him, and yet he was humble enough to come to me. And that revelation that I shared with him, which God has given me about that topic, has helped to shape a lot of his ministry and a lot of how he blesses people and helps them. And so, we need to maintain an attitude like this of, hey, I haven't arrived, but I've left, and I can always learn something new. Albert Einstein said, once you stop learning, you start dying. And so we can always learn something. And this year, I think it's a healthy goal that we can make to constantly be learning, constantly be growing in our relationship with God, in our skill set, in our knowledge, and all those kind of things. I do not consider myself to have attained to this. That's what Paul said. And that's the attitude we should have. And then he says, but I am single-minded. Okay, he says, I am single-minded. James 1:8 says, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. It's like standing on an icy lake, each foot on a different piece of ice, and those ice pieces are drifting apart. Eventually you're going to do the splits, whether you want to or not. Have you ever tried to make a decision about what to eat, but you just can't decide between this or between that? Eventually you have to make a decision, otherwise you're going to go hungry. Okay? The dictionary defines unstable as likely to change or fail, not firmly established. That's not God's will for you. God's will is that you be established, that you be firmly established, okay? If you want to be successful, you have to be single-minded, which is talking about stability in your life because of a focus. Okay, another definition for unstable is prone to psychiatric problems or sudden mood changes. So holding between two opinions can drive you nuts. Some of you have experienced that, in the car when you're driving somewhere with your spouse to go and eat. And it's like, well, love, what do you want to eat? And she's like, I don't know, what do you want to eat? And you're like, oh, I asked you first. And that whole situation can drive you nuts because the two of you are holding between two opinions. And someone just needs to make a decision. So we need to be single-minded, which means we're not up and down like a yo-yo and all the way around. We're firmly established. Success comes from being focused, from being single-minded. The strength of a laser is in its focus. When you take away the focus and the light is diffused and it's weak, it becomes ineffective. The New King James Version of Philippians 3:13 says, I do not count myself to have apprehended, but one thing I do. Paul says this one thing I do. He was single-minded. He didn't say these 10 things I do. He said this one thing I do. This is a key for success. And this is a key for success in the kingdom and in the world, in all of life. This one thing I do. Don't try and be the master of all trades, or the jack of all trades, but the master of none. We need to realize that God has called us to do something, not some things. Might be many things under the same umbrella, but we need to maintain focus. We need to maintain our energy in a specific direction, and by doing what we're called to do and not allowing anything else, whether it's good or bad, to distract us from the thing that God has called us to, from the direction He has called us to go in.